Hello, beings of light. Today's story is from Sandy T., who unfortunately suffered domestic violence and extreme abuse during her childhood. Sandy shares her traumatic life experiences and her profound near-death experiences, NDEs, revealing moments of unimaginable pain and encounters with beings of light. It is a powerful and impactful story that makes us reflect on the resilience of the human spirit. Let's begin. I have had several NDEs, but have only written about 3. Between the ages of 5 and 7, I was strangled by a woman in a fit of rage and taken to the hospital unresponsive. They connected me to various machines, and the doctor was furious, saying they had abused and killed me. He put me on an EEG machine to prove I had brain trauma caused by the strangulation. Extraordinary measures were taken, and my heart started beating again. But I remained unresponsive. The doctor argued with my foster parents to remove life support because I was brain dead. Eventually, I flatlined and was declared dead. I watched from beside my body, feeling impartial and somewhat relieved that my suffering was over. My foster parents had forced me to eat dog food from the floor, shoved a hot curling iron inside me, and assaulted me so severely that my uterus was 75% scar tissue by the age of 8. There were many more episodes of severe abuse, but this sets the stage for the NDE. As I stood next to my body, I felt relieved that the suffering was over. I became aware of a being of light standing beside me. The being said, "Follow them." I turned back to watch the foster parents and the doctor leave the room. We went down a hallway, through double doors, and stopped at an office where the doctor and foster parents began to argue. The being said, "Remember exactly what they say." I did so and later replayed the conversation word for word to those involved. The being then asked, "Are you ready to go?" I asked, "What are you?" It responded that I could call it whatever I wanted to. Most people called it an angel or a guide, and some called it a god. But I inherently understood it wasn't any of those. It expressed pleasure and pride, what we might call a smile, and replied, "No, none of those are fully accurate, though all are as accurate as they can be, for the person deciding." The being then took me into the presence of the great intelligence that created everything. I would call it God, though this word has too many misunderstandings associated with it in our world to be accurate. In this presence, I felt love everywhere, thick and heavy, with a literal physical presence. This presence was exquisite and magnificent, and I felt its gratitude for all of humanity and those who suffer in this place. It's something I've never heard spoken of, that God is grateful to us and for all that we are and do. Then I was taken into the universe. I surfed on sound and tasted colors that we can't see and have no names for on Earth. I experienced the fullness of the songs that the planets sing to each other and the laughter of the stars. I experienced indescribable beauty and vast love and joy. I returned to the being who led me and carried some of the presence with me, which I will carry forever. We walked back toward my body, speaking at length. The final conversation went something like this: "You don't have to go back. It's your choice. If I don't go back, I will have failed. Much will fail." I didn't want to go back, but felt a powerful draw to do so. You will be loved and welcomed home regardless. You will be celebrated and there will be rejoicing and welcome. I looked at my body lying there. I will know only pain if I go back. Yes. Still, the choice to return is your own. We will not decide. We love you always. I want to stay so badly. I looked at the being and felt its understanding and willingness to accept that. I'll go back. It wasn't a choice, but it felt like acceptance and knowledge. I knew I would go back. I had promised. I had work to do, although it was hard work. But I didn't want to go back. The being waited patiently as my feelings of pain and desperation warred with my mental knowledge and commitment. I had just spent eternity in magic wonder and a wealth of love and gratitude, listening to celestial songs in a perfect world. Now, I would return to squalor, abject misery, terror, and agony, and I knew it wouldn't end soon either. I returned to my body and all the inherent pain after an exploration of magnificence I cannot even describe. Here I remain, for now. I have finally decided to write about another one. I suppose with the strangeness of our world, it's just the right time. I've told this in part, but not in full and not in as much detail as it happened. I was under 6 years old when I had this one. My foster mother had a great liking for strangulation as punishment. She was strangling me, and I remember my world narrowing down to a pinprick. This was the same thing I've seen at another time when I locked my knees and nearly fainted. As the world narrowed and moved away down my tunnel vision, I had an intense urge to keep fighting. I was past the point where I normally gave up fighting. But this time I felt a deep urge to keep struggling. As the world narrowed and then vanished, all I could feel was my body and hers against it. As I became momentarily blind, I could feel myself slowing down, but my emotions began to cease. I was no longer afraid, and now it seemed as if my body was fighting on its own. Then I was out of my body, observing the scene. My body was now limp, and Dorothy was shaking it by the neck, as if expecting more fight. I turned to the being beside my awareness, and it reached out to me as if to take my hand in real life. "Let's take a tour," was all it communicated to me. I glanced back and saw that Dorothy had begun to resuscitate my body. I felt worried, but not for the body. "When we have time," the being communicated, "time here will not pass while we are there." We were somewhere else. I didn't sense a transition as much as just being somewhere else. I felt awe and wonder. We were at the base of plants that were like trees, but more akin to seaweed. They waved back and forth like great fronds of ferns, either red or gold. The red ones had gold veining. The gold ones had green veining. Moving gracefully through them were intelligent creatures, almost impossible to explain. They glowed with bioluminescent light, resembling mermaids in appearance. They were long and lean, with narrow but kind and elegant faces. Their eyes were wide set, not quite on the sides of their heads, and their fingers were webbed with light moving along their surface. I understood that this was a different world, a different planet from Earth. This world was completely covered in water, and they had no concept of Earth, dirt, or ground. They lived their entire lives on the water currents of their vast world. We sank deeper into this world, encountering more strange creatures, similar but less evolved, curious and able to sense us. They were gentle, filled with joy and pleasure in our presence, flocking around us like dolphins. These creatures were a color we have no word for, and I no longer remembered the color as soon as I returned to my human body. These creatures lived in the darkness where their sun could not reach, and saw in color that humans cannot. They greeted us joyfully, emitting high-pitched sounds that were not painful, singing beautiful songs that traveled in the water. I heard others of their kind return their song from afar. I could hear and understand their simple song about visits, joy, and teaching. They believed I had come to learn, and they would teach me. With the gentle urging of the being beside me, I went with them to their honeycomb-like cavern homes under the ground, where water flowed in musical patterns. We swam in these caves, where algae on the walls and microscopic life created walls. Some caves were inhabited by ancient gigantic life that grew cone-like shells and ate the life that bloomed in the water. These creatures could sleep for decades before the algae bloomed and woke them. They showed me how to sense when we were going too far up, feeling the sensation of coming apart when reaching depth limits. They showed me another school of their kind, swimming around me in circles, brushing against my energy, asking for a blessing. I blessed them, saying they would prosper for their kindness and for washing away some of my grief. They were satisfied, and the group I was with brought me back to our meeting place. They wished for a blessing in their turn, and I said they would grow greater because they had taught me. Satisfied, we went up into space, traveling among stars and planets, each beautiful in its turn. When it was time to return, we came to my body almost as we had left it. I had just spent eternity among strange creatures, stars, gas giants, ringed planets, frozen planets, and burning magma planets. I stood in my body, looking back at the being. It was infinitely patient, waiting for me. I knew it was time to go back. I felt a surge of love for the being, then felt the emotions in my body as I woke up coughing and vomiting. This is the last of my NDEs that I will share for now. I was with the sadistic foster parents from the ages of 3 to 7, and it was during these times that I had my NDEs. I'll do my best to make this coherent. It's overwhelming and hard to put things into a logical and understandable order. One thing I want to make sure is understood is that I fought against what I was told, taught, or downloaded during these NDEs. This one has plagued me for my entire life. I'll try to express my struggles over it, while also expressing the messages clearly. This was a particularly fascinating NDE, and there are things to express from that standpoint, which will also be a challenge. As I rose from my body, I found my friend waiting for me. My friend was a humanoid-shaped form of light, radiating kindness, love, and patience. We ignored the commotion of the foster mother trying to revive my body. I stood looking up at my body. Everything is up from a child's perspective, although I could see everything around me. What do you wish to ask but have not? It conveyed soundlessly. Why? With that question, I asked a dozen others. Why me? Why suffering? Why this horrible world? Why did I go back when I could leave? Why would I accept such horrific things when I am a spark of the divine, a portion of the great intelligence? It was a cry of confusion, anger, pain, and loss. It held out a proverbial hand and asked, "Are you sure you want to know?" No. All that you suffer now will go easier if you do not know. I pondered. Did I want to know if it would bring more pain? In the end, I decided that I wanted to know. My friend already knew my decision. There was a nod, and we were off. First, we went to the chamber of the great intelligence, what you might call God. This was the loving, vast being who made all things. I received the download that answered my questions of why, as far as I am allowed to have those answers on Earth. After a long time in that presence, I reluctantly went with my friend to a world with 2 suns. One was brilliant red gold, the other pale white, smaller than the greater sun but greater than our sun. This planet had vast cities, magnificent towering edifices gleaming with crystalline shine, not built but grown. They were teeming with life, not merely intelligent species, but also animals. Some climbing creatures nested far up in the great hollow houses, gliding from one pinnacle to another. The intelligent beings were filled with laughter, happiness, and sublime contentment. They were golden-skinned and willowy, similar to humans but with softer, rounder faces. They wore clothing to express themselves, not for cultural or physiological purposes. They danced and wove cloth through the air. I wished to go closer but knew it would be disrespectful. We went to another planet where people lived in sprawling huts far apart. These people were not like what I expected of intelligent species. They were not bipedal and used their feet like hands. Their back legs were hoofed, and they curled their hands into fists to run. They lived in harmony and were attuned to their planet, speaking to it. There were two other intelligent species, all living symbiotically. The huts were made by gentle, ape-like beings, carried on the bellies of the four-legged beings. The third race was also ape-like but more human in appearance, greeting us with raised hands. We bowed and sent blessings before moving on. I saw wonders everywhere: waterfalls, burning flames, shifting energy of the suns, jubilant joy giving life. It was the most joyful, beautiful, wonderful experience anyone could have. I met incredible spiritual beings, filled with contentment and joy. Everywhere there was great love, dignity, respect, and compassion. It was so exquisite that I couldn't contain my tears. I have a diminished capacity to remember this experience, as my brain can only encompass so much in this limited form. Knowing what lies beyond makes living here hard. Another reason I rarely spoke of my experience is that it makes me yearn to return. After a long exploration, we stopped in space near a nebula, more beautiful than in photos. The answer to your question: everything we do, all we are, allows creation to exist. Every beautiful thing depends on people in rare places, like Earth. The great intelligence, God, is a paradox, completely loving and unlimited. Earth is where the unlimited becomes limited, where the singular becomes many, knowing community and loneliness, heartache and hope. Free will is the option to come here, helping solve the paradox of God. We exist to solve the paradox, expanding the universe each time we choose to love. Love is our true nature. When we experience horrible things, the question why arises. The answer is to allow all things to continue to exist. Each soul chose to suffer for love, for the universe, and for life. Thank you for watching until now. I ask that you subscribe to the channel and share this video with the people you love. Also, I would like to know your opinions about Sandy's experiences. Do you think these experiences were real or a way to cope with trauma? Leave your comments below. That's it for now. Thank you very much.